The famous actor Douglas Fairbanks was driving back one day to his Pickfair mansion in Los Angeles when he saw a very distinguished-looking Englishman walking down the side of the road. "I know that man," he thought to himself. "He is some British lord, and I'm sure he has been to my house, but I can't place who he is." So he stopped and offered the man a ride. They began talking in the car, and Douglas Fairbanks still couldn't figure out where he knew him from. He was obviously some sort of aristocrat. So he invited him into the house for a drink, and the man accepted with pleasure. All during the conversation, Douglas was trying to pull out of the man who he was. He realized from their conversation that they had many friends in common. The man knew all the same people that Douglas knew. He was very familiar with the house and even complimented Mr. Fairbanks on some recent improvements. But he still couldn't figure out who he was. Finally, the secretary came in, and Douglas whispered to him, "Who is this Englishman? I know he is Lord something or other, but who?" The secretary said, "That is the English butler you fired last month for getting drunk." Often we find people in positions of serving who have so much dignity about them that we could easily mistake them for a born aristocrat. Is there something about serving which gives us nobility and makes us grow? When I was living in Rome, our house often put on tremendous banquets, and all the distinguished people of society would attend. Cardinals, princes, ambassadors, and other high-ranking personages. I remember our favorite was always the ambassador of Morocco, a very refined yet kind and humble man. After these fine dinners, I would sit around with these dignitaries in all their finery, enjoying drinks and good cigars imported from Holland. But after they had all gone, came my favorite part of the whole affair, when I would sit there alone with the old janitor and talk about the people who had just been there. I found the company of that poor old Italian servant to be much more delightful than that of all those distinguished guests. It should come as no surprise that Jesus himself always seemed to prefer the company of the lowly and poor, the company of servants. "Whoever wishes to be great among you," he tells us, "will be your servant. And if you want to be first, be the slave of all." Now, slavery is a hideously evil institution, but there is something extraordinarily noble about those who serve. The early abolitionist Josiah Henson was himself a former slave. One day he was introduced to the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop was impressed by the noble manner and refined speech of this former slave, and he asked him, "What university did you attend?" Josiah replied, "The University of Adversity." I think that must be the greatest institution of learning on earth. It is through adversity that we grow. It is through service to others that we develop inwardly. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. We can all say the same. It's nice to be served, but we don't grow. It is only when we are serving others that we grow into something great. We might think of a gardener, a cleaning lady, a waiter at a restaurant, a nurse. But it doesn't matter what our employment is. We can all either be served or serve. Society holds teachers in high esteem. But teaching is a position of true service, requiring infinite patience and humility. The same can be said of every mother and father in this world. A doctor, too, occupies an exalted position, and some became quite wealthy. But a good doctor is there truly to serve the people who came to him. And a priest? Well, these days you hear a lot about priests being up on a pedestal. A good priest friend of mine said to me, "I would love to find that pedestal so that just once in my life I can stand on it for one moment." There is no pedestal. A priest's life, if taken seriously, is a life of service, often to those in their dying moments. The Pope himself can be served or can serve. He carries a lot of fancy titles, and some popes have carried them with a little too much pride. But the greatest title the Pope has is Servus Servorum Dei, servant of the servants of God. That is the only one of his titles that will do him any good. Some popes have embodied that most beautiful of titles to an extraordinary degree. It doesn't matter if you are a senator, a pastor, or a shoeshine boy. You can serve to live, or you can live to serve. We can be served and stagnate, or we can live a life of serving others and grow into something truly noble. The choice is ours. I choose to serve. I choose to grow.